The president during the progressive period was Teddy Roosevelt, and we all are familiar with Teddy Roosevelt. You've heard his name before. So this presentation is going to cover most of the major aspects of Roosevelt's presidency and his life. We'll get a little bit more into the politics of his presidency tomorrow, but I want to make sure that you have a good background of what Teddy Roosevelt really stood for. So your guiding question is, what was Teddy Roosevelt's impact on United States history? So Teddy Roosevelt, it was a huge personality. He was probably one of the most well-known presidents ever. And that's because he had this great drive, energy, and a really, really exciting personality. He had this big, larger-than-life persona. He had worked as the New York City Police Commissioner. He was in the Spanish-American War, which we know from our previous conversations. And he was a Rough Rider, which, of course, was part of the Spanish-American War, but really helped him to gain his fame because, remember, he brought those photographers along to battle with him so that they could kind of capture this image of this larger-than-life person. So he was New York governor and then eventually became vice president under William McKinley. William McKinley was assassinated. So Teddy Roosevelt moves into office. They called him the accidental president. So one of the things that like I just said, he offered this new form of energetic leadership. He really, really wanted the United States to become a more moral, patriotic nation. So a lot of his conversations and his radio addresses came from this moral, very political standpoint. He was a master politician. And you're going to see throughout history some of those people who were just born politicians. Roosevelt was one of them. People that have always been able to schmooze with the crowd. They love to kiss the babies. They love to be in public. So his first term was very modest. It wasn't very crazy because he did feel like it was an accidental presidency. He felt like, McKinley had been assassinated. He wasn't quite, ready to take over all of the big, big, big reforms that a president typically takes over. One of Roosevelt's biggest passions was the outdoors, the great outdoors. So this part of this presentation is about his love for the great outdoors. So he was a conservationist, one of the first really, really outspoken conservationists. And conservationists are people who want to save land, essentially, and want land to be preserved for its original intent. So he set aside a number of national parks, national forests, game and bird preserves that people couldn't hunt on. Okay, he set aside almost 230 million acres of reservations to keep land in its natural state. And then I put this quote down here. He said, "Leave it as it is. You cannot improve on it. The ages have been at work on it, and man can only mar it." So this is something that conservationists even today keep in mind. And then I put just a little blurb down here about the teddy bear, that there were political cartoons of Teddy Roosevelt, in conserving his land, and there was a picture of him saving a bear. So that bear became known as the teddy bear, which, is the classic teddy bear that we snuggle on every night. So some of his policies and reforms, first of all, the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal was one of his biggest foreign policy feats. And we're going to look really seriously into the Panama Canal tomorrow and the effects that it had on the region of Panama and on the United States. Then there was the Square Deal, and the Square Deal came up with domestic reforms. So Pure Food and Drug Act, the Meat Inspection Act, a lot of those were a result of that muckraking that we talked about earlier, about those books and studies that were being done about some of these horrible conditions in the meat packing industry and other areas. Keeping people safe, essentially, is what this boils down to. It says attack on laissez-faire. And we'll learn a little bit more about what laissez-faire means. That's something you'll probably look at more seriously in your economics classes. But a laissez-faire government is a government that's really laid back, that's hands-off, that doesn't have its fingers in a lot of the smaller areas. So he wanted to, kind of he wanted government to have a larger role. So one of the first things that he does, or one of the big things he was passionate about, was this attack on trusts. He did not like that idea of a monopoly or that huge business. He wanted those businesses to have some limits on them. So he was nicknamed the Trust Buster as well. And he was known for his big stick diplomacy. And his favorite proverb was, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." And then it's kind of neat to look at some of the things that Roosevelt was famous for, some of the firsts in office, and he had a long list of firsts. Okay, one of the things that all of us appreciate is the fact that he really helped to save American football. He created a committee of 3 people that helped to bring some safety standards to football so that it wasn't as dangerous for the players. He was the first to invite an African American to a White House dinner. We talked about how Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass oftentimes spoke at the White House, but this was a formal dinner situation, so it was a little bit different. He was first to have the Secret Service protection, first to win a Nobel Peace Prize for his work towards ending the Russo-Japanese War. He's the first to take a trip outside of the United States, first to give an open invitation to the press to come into the life of the presidency. He was also, just some kind of fun trivia things, first to be submerged in a submarine, the first president to own a car, the first to have a telephone in his home, and then the first to be allowed to operate the light switches in the White House. So Roosevelt was obviously a bigger-than-life person, very, very strong character, and he probably, caused a lot of consternation with all of these firsts that he did. But it's really neat to see that, and then to compare it to how he handled the United States and being president, which we will look at tomorrow. So y'all take these notes and be ready for class then. Bye.